This is Mini Mindset, the show that takes a brief look at the psychology and emotion of finance and business. I'm your host, Adam Cox, and joining me today we have Matt Dronfield from Debt Free London. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Adam.
Great to have you on the show. Now, obviously, it's been probably the strangest 12 months of my life. It feels like a very weird time. How has the pandemic affected people's personal debt across the UK?
Well, Adam, if we think back to before the pandemic hit, we already knew that there was 1.4 million Londoners that had a problem with that, and across the UK, that figure was 8.3 million. Now, 80% of the people that we supported last year said they worried about money either quite often or all the time. And the effect of COVID has just been devastating. We know there's close to 700,000 people that are now forced to live into poverty due to the pandemic. And the recent statistics show that as many 15 million now people live in poverty, with some 9.6 million people incomes now sitting at 25% or more below the official definition of poverty. To put that in perspective, that's similar to pre 20th century levels of poverty. Now, you'd think with that, we'd be inundated with calls, but because of the government's different support schemes, including the furlough and the payment holidays on rent and credit card bills, we've actually seen less people this at the moment than we would normally at this time of year. So we really want to encourage people that may have a money worry to reach out and get the support while we're available.
It sounds to me that um, even if you have got, let's say, payment holidays on credit card debt, or if your landlord has said, right, well, you can delay rent payments and things like that, isn't that just potentially causing a bigger problem on the horizon so that, potentially in a few months' time, what people feel okay about now could cause real stress and issues, in a few months?
You're absolutely right, Adam. As much as it's kind of giving people some mind space to deal with family issues and focus on health at the moment. Their debts are getting bigger and bigger the longer they put them off. And we kind of describe this to some of our clients like a big avalanche. And the snow might not be falling down the mountain yet, but it's building up and up on the top of the mountain. So do reach out and get help before the avalanche starts to fall down.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very powerful metaphor, and a terrifying metaphor, because if you feel that you're at the bottom of a valley and yeah, you're not having to deal with it now, but the problem is accumulating, which is obviously the nature of debt and interest, it compounds over time. Um, it may be that, people are trying to cope with this in different ways. Do you think there's a tendency for people to put their head in the sand and just kind of not think about it, hope it goes away, and potentially making it worse when the avalanche does start to fall?
Unfortunately, we do think that's the case, yes. And we know how hard it is to approach the subject of debt, especially with friends or family. Often it can take many months before people reach out and speak to us, and we can be the first people that they speak to about their money worries. That's why from the 11th of January, we've opened our service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you haven't spoke to a family member yet, you can call us at any time during day or night, or even reach out to us via WhatsApp or our web chat app. So if it's too difficult to, give us a phone call and speak about it, there are other ways you can get that help and support.
Hmm. And some of the tactics of these debt management companies, or some of the people that chase up debts, quite often the company will just sell the debt on to people that have quite aggressive tactics, to make sure they get paid before anyone else. Does that cause additional stress? And how can people cope with, let's say, being bombarded by letters, emails, phone calls, perhaps in the future when that, dynamic changes?
No, I agree, Adam. And before the pandemic, we operated 55 face to face advice centres across the capital. And all too often, people would come to us with kind of carrier bags full of unopened letters that they were too afraid to open, or were turning up to us when bailiffs were knocking at the door. Um, what's really important is that people can seek out independent, impartial, free advice. And that advice can go through all the debts that they've got and work out which ones are priority debts. So ones which may cause you to lose your home or accommodation, or in worst case scenario, end up in prison, and which ones are non-priority. And we can work on behalf of the client completely for free and negotiate on their behalf with creditors.
And I guess the immediate feeling, just having a conversation with someone that really understands the landscape of debt and the legal rules and what can and can't be done, is it relief that they feel just even having a conversation with someone?
just a massive relief to know that somebody's on their side and generally, as you say, understands this legal landscape, understands how to work out which debts you need to pay off first, and someone on your side to reach out to the creditor and negotiate on your behalf. It's a massive relief to so many of our clients.
Hmm. And what are some of the strategies in which you help them? Because obviously there are lots of different ways of managing debt. Is it payment plans? Is it kind of these different mechanics to change the status of the individual? What or is it completely unique to the individual?
Now, every client situation is, as you say, is unique and different. And what our job is to work out all the debts that each client has, work out which ones are priority and non-priority, and then give the client the options for which them to choose from in how they want to approach their debts.
Hmm. There is that saying, if you're digging a hole, stop digging, which sounds like very obvious advice. But if people are, let's say, struggling financially in the pandemic, they are, maybe on a uh, payment holidays and rent's been reduced or delayed or whatever it might be. Um, there is the temptation, isn't there, to use credit cards to take out a personal loan um, to solve the day to day money problems, but that can make that hole a bit deeper. What would be your advice to those people that are conflicted that might see the adverts for money to borrow, but at the same time they are already in debt? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, so we always say kind of like the payday loan scenario is the last resort, and that you should seek advice before taking out one of those loans because the cost of borrowing money that way can be so expensive. But seeking advice from an independent free advisor, from which there's, as I said, there's Debt Free London in the capital, but there's many free advice providers across the country. Seek that free advice, and they can point you in the right direction to give you a range of different options to suit your needs. And
Mm,
you're quite right in pointing out in terms of client scenarios. So all too often it's a common misconception that people kind of spend their way into debt and it's their own fault. Actually, more often than not, clients that come to us are in debt as a result. It's no fault of their own. They might have lost their job as a result of the pandemic. One of themselves or one of their family members might have fallen into ill health, and it very quickly you can be quite stable in your finances to very unstable quite quickly. Just looking at some of the stats we've seen since the pandemic, we've seen a 92% increase in clients that are looking for work or registered unemployed. Um, You'd be no surprise to hear that the most common types of debt that we help with are council tax bills and rent arrears. Between those, they make up more than 60% of the debts that we help with. And doing our early forecasting, we do expect between a 200 and 300% increase in the demand for our free advice services in the next 12 months, but we're not seeing that yet. So that message again to your listeners, Adam, is if you are worrying about money, don't worry on your own. Reach out and get that free advice.
yeah, speak to people that know what's going on and have a wealth of experience. Because you're right, there is a misconception. I think that if people are struggling with debt, then it's through bad financial decisions, spending money on holidays and clothes that they can't afford. But you're right, if you're used to having a certain income and then you've been, let's say, made unemployed as a direct result of the pandemic, and for many people that are self-employed at the smaller size of business, they weren't quite able to get bounce back loans and couldn't furlough them staff and kind of got lost in no man's land where they didn't have that financial support. So there's many reasons why people could be in debt through no fault of their own, which I think is a really important distinction. Give us the details again where people can go for more information on this.
Thanks, Adam. So, as I said, Debt Free London provides completely free and impartial advice across the capital for anybody living, working, or studying in London. We're open 24/7 all the way through January and February. Listeners can call us on free phone 0800 808 5700 or visit our website at www.debtfree.london, where they can start a web chat, or if it's helpful, they can start a video chat with an advisor too. Again, 24 hours a day, where they can show some of their letters and things they might be concerned about or not quite understand.
Fantastic. Matt Dronfield, Debt Free London. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks, Adam. Take care.
And to you at home, thanks for joining me on Mini Mindset in association with Share Radio. Join me again soon for more.